What are these 5 tips to boost your physical therapy school application in 2023? You do these, you will be an absolute rock star, and you'll help yourself catapult your journey closer to this dream of becoming a doctor of physical therapy.
Turning dreams into reality.
In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips that will boost your physical therapy school application in 2023. So if that's what you want, if you're a pre-PT, if you're interested in becoming a physical therapist, then listen to everything that I'm about to share with you. Now, my name is Joseph Ngugi, and I'm one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind, where for years we've been helping students like you get into physical therapy school without wasting time or money. And I know how important it is to get into physical therapy school for you, especially if this is your dream career. I also know how stressful it can be to think about, well, like, what if I do everything in my power and I still don't get into physical therapy school, which is why this platform, Pre-PT Grind, was built years ago to help students like yourself. And so what I want to do is, as we're starting this new year, 2023, I want to break down for you 5 key tips that if you can leverage them, if you can use them, they will help you stand out amongst the rest. And these are 5 things that anyone can do, but unfortunately, most students don't do it. So if you can do it, your chances of getting into school will absolutely skyrocket. And I'm saying this after we've coached tons and tons of students over the years. We've had students that have had insanely low GPAs when they started working with us, 2.4s, 2.2s, students that had felt like, well, like, what if I apply to more schools? And they had applied to as many as 20 schools in a given application cycle and gotten rejected by all of them and didn't know what to do next. And so they did what I'm about to share with you. We've had students that have felt like they were too late in the game. They had been 10 years out of school, 7 years out of school, 15 years out of school before they said, you know what, I want to be a physical therapist and I want to do everything in my power. But everywhere they looked, they felt like they were never going to be good enough, or they were never going to be able to compete with other applicants. And so unfortunately, because of that, a lot of students end up giving up on their career. They give up on their dream because they feel like they can't do it. And so our job is to help you not quit, because the only thing holding you back from becoming a physical therapist is if you quit, is if you pull the plug. So let's talk about it. What are these 5 tips to boost your physical therapy school application in 2023? You do these, you will be an absolute rock star, and you'll help yourself catapult your journey closer to this dream of becoming a doctor of physical therapy. So before I share with you these 5 tips, let's first of all establish one thing. So we have a lot of students that are curious, when should I even start thinking about applying, or when should I start thinking about preparing to apply? Because I know that the application cycle starts in the summer. Like, when should I start? And the answer is right now. Like, whenever you're watching this video, right now is when you should start preparing. The reality is you've actually been applying this whole time. Ever since you were a freshman in college, you were building up your application. Only now you can start being intentional about key things that will help you get closer to your dream of becoming a physical therapist. And to do that, we have to understand strategy. We have to understand how this game actually works, which is why we're here to help guide you through that. But right now is the time to begin. Do not procrastinate. I'm telling you right now, too many dreams, too many physical therapy dreams are lost because of procrastination, thinking that I can push something off until later. So let's not do that anymore. Let's absolutely cut that out so that you can get yourself closer to this dream. So what are these 5 tips? Let's break them down. This is how you can help yourself get closer to getting into PT school, starting PT school, and so much more. So here are the 5 tips, and then let me break them down for you. But I'm going to share with you the details behind them that most students miss. So when I say the titles of the 5, you might be like, okay, I know how to do that, but do you really? Right? So let's dive deeper so that as we go into 2023, you feel confident, you feel like you know everything you need to know, you feel like you have the tools and the resources needed to absolutely nail it as an applicant. So number 1 is finding the right school. So I'll talk about that here in just a second, but if I am going to give myself the ability to boost my application, the school that I apply to matters. Most of us were never really taught how to do that, or most of us are are very picky with the schools that we select, or we go to the schools that we're familiar with locally, whether it's a school that our friends go to or a school that our parents are familiar with. So I'll dive into that here in just a second, but that's the first one. I need to find the right school. Number two, I need to understand those schools. Once I find the right school, I need to understand that school in and out. So most of us, we look at the school's website, we look at what's on PT Cast, and we're like, I think I know what the school wants. I know what classes they want, and we stop there. That is a mistake. I will share with you why that is a mistake and why we need to shift that approach if you want to increase your chance of getting accepted into PT school. Number three is reverse engineer. If I can know what the right school is, if I can understand that school in and out, then I can actually start reverse engineering so that I can start building myself into what we call the perfect applicant for that school, right? Now, does that mean that you're going to have a 4.0 or whatnot? Probably not. There's tons of you that might be watching this that have lower GPAs, or you have a 3.2 or a 2.9 or whatnot. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that you need a perfect GPA. It just means that you can become the perfect applicant for the schools that you're meant to apply for. And we'll talk about that here in just a second, but this is super, super important. If we miss these steps, it's going to be a lot more difficult for us to get accepted into physical therapy school. Number four is focusing only on the controllables, right? So only on the things that we can control. Most students waste time and energy because they are focusing on the things they cannot control. They're wasting time looking back at the past, maybe the fact that, so for example, if you have a lower GPA, you might be looking back at saying, well, like, I wish I would have, gotten a higher grade than a D or a higher grade than a C, or I wish this, or I wish that. So you're looking at the past. You are focusing on things that you cannot control, or even stats wise, there's certain things that are just harder to control, especially, for example, if you've already gotten your college degree and you have a lower cumulative GPA. Yes, it can go up, but it's not going to go up like immensely unless you take a ton of classes because of what it's taken to get to that point. Now, here's the thing. Most people realize that and then they think, oh, I'm never going to be good enough. No. If you want to become a physical therapist, every single one of you can become a PT. You've just more than likely not been taught how to actually leverage the strengths that you have, even though you feel like you have a bunch of weaknesses potentially. So that's number four. And then number five is resources and guidance to make it all happen, right? So let's go through all of them. And then after that, I'll give you some next steps. If you're like, yo, I'm serious. I want to make this work. I want to make this happen. I want to get accepted into PT school in 2023. I don't want to mess around. Let's do this thing. So number one, finding the right school. This is super, super critical, right? So I'm not going to go into all the details of what it takes to find the perfect school, but just be mindful of the process that you take to select schools, right? So I actually just had a conversation earlier today with a student who had picked schools based off of what they were familiar with, or schools that they had heard about. And the reality is there's nearly 300 schools in the United States, right? So am I actually doing my due diligence to figure out which programs are the best match for me? And you can do it the hard way, which is having a whole bunch of tabs open, or if you follow my next steps at the very end of this, we actually have a way for you to do it within minutes, like where you can find the perfect match schools for you based off of stats, based off of cost and location and so many other things. But if I can filter down to my perfect match schools, then that is where everything else flows from that. If I don't get that part right, it's going to be very difficult for me to leverage step 2 through 5. Does that make sense? And so if I can figure out the perfect match schools, the reality is I actually won't need to apply to as many schools as you might think you need to apply to, right? So over the years, we've actually realized that the sweet spot for applications or for students to apply to PT school, the sweet spot is somewhere between 4 and 7 schools. If I can apply to somewhere between 4 and 7 schools of the right programs, then my chances skyrocket. And I'm saying that because we actually had a student who, and I've shared this story before, but we had a student who had applied to almost 20 schools in one cycle, got rejected by all of them. And she thought that the only way she would increase her chance of getting in was to apply to more schools the next cycle. Now, fortunately enough, that next cycle, she actually hired our team and was in our coaching program called the Accepted System. And we were like, whoa, we can't be doing that. Like, we have to figure out which schools are the best match for you. She ended up applying to 5 schools and got accepted into 3 of those 5 schools, and then ended up telling the remaining 2 schools schools, she ended up telling them, don't worry about it. I've already picked the school that I'm going to apply to. So she actually literally went from being rejected one cycle to the next cycle being the one that was saying no to programs. And it all came down to finding the right school. So have I invested the time in finding the right school? And if you don't have the resources for it, I got you. Like at the end of this, I will tell you what your next steps are. And we have a resource that is going to help you do just that. Number two, understand the school in and out. So this is super key. So if I know the right school, think of it almost like a relationship. If I have the right person that I'm in a relationship with, if I can invest time in understanding them, things are just going to work out better, right? So with a school, how much do I know about them? How much do I know about them based off of what I see online, on their website, from campus visits, from faculty members? Have I learned how to interact with them? Have I learned how to ask questions that show me things that are far deeper than what they showed the rest of the world? Have I figured out how to maybe access or build relationships with alumni of that school or students that currently go to that program? Like, have I done those things? Because the better I understand the school in and out, the better I understand their culture, the better I understand what they prioritize, and there's ways to do that, the better I can actually tailor step 3, which is reverse engineering everything. This is where I can say, I know what the school wants. I know what they want in and out. I know what they're asking for. I know that schools are also slightly different, right? Don't make the mistake of assuming that all schools are generic and all schools want the same thing. They do not. Please don't make the mistake of applying to every school as if it's just any other school. Schools can sense that. And we've had chairs of departments actually tell us, like, we don't like it when when students are just applying to us as if we're just any other program. We want to feel like they actually understand us, right? And so that's a big part. I can actually go to step 3, which is reverse engineer. Now I can look at what they want. I can look at what my current situation is and then say, okay, what are the things that I need to do between now and the time I submit my application to make sure that my experiences, what I bring to the table, actually matches with what they're actually about, not just the stats, but even the stuff beneath it. If you can start doing that, you already put yourself in a completely different category and a different class than all other applicants. Most students do not go that far. Most students don't even pick the right schools. And so that's why they're all basically all over the place. And that does not have to be you. And then number 4 is then saying, okay, what are the things that I can control? I can control retaking classes for my prereqs. I can control learning how to actually study better for the GRE. Even though I struggle with the GRE, I can actually learn how to take standardized tests better. I can learn from experts, people that are actually good at it, not just looking at a prep book, not just doing what any other student does. Can I actually learn how this game works? Can I actually learn how to figure out what my weaknesses are? Can I figure out, okay, like what are the best study strategies that I need to apply so that when I retake chemistry or biology, I can actually get an A this time, not a C, right? So those are the big things. And it requires step number 5, which is saying, what are the resources I need? Most of us struggle with asking for help. What are the resources I need? And what is the guidance that I need to make it happen? And why I'm saying that's so important is because literally every single stage, at least of my career as a student, to even being a physical therapist, I've been super cool with asking for help. Like I'm okay with it. Shoot, like chemistry and physics. I always say this, like chemistry and physics. I had 2 tutors for chemistry and 2 tutors for physics because I struggled with them. But my goal was not to look good to my classmates when it came to chemistry or physics. My goal was to become a physical therapist. So I was willing to do whatever it took. I was willing to get as much guidance as I needed in order to become a strong PT school applicant. Does that make sense? And so that is the biggest thing. And so if you want to get accepted into PT school in 2023, that is the game you have to play. Those are the 5 tips to boost your physical therapy school application in 2023. And the reality is, it's the same tips that you're going to need in 2024, 2025, 2026, and so on and so forth. That is the key. Now, if after listening to this, you're like, that makes sense, but you're like, I don't know how to do those things. I don't have the resources to find the right school for me. I don't have the resources to figure out what I can control. I want help applying it. Then I got you. Like, we've actually designed something specific to you, like specifically for you as someone that is applying in 2023 or even 2024. Go to www.ptschoolacceptance.com. www.ptschoolacceptance.com. If you go there, we got you. We got you with your next step. It's going to be very, very straightforward, super self-explanatory, but it'll help you get massively closer to your dream of becoming a doctor of physical therapy. That is it. Keep absolutely crushing it. But also do not ignore these steps. Don't assume that you're just going to kind of coast until the application cycle opens. Please do not make the mistake of looking at your classmates and just following their lead. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you have to do this all on your own. You absolutely do not. And this is where to begin. Let's make 2023 your year. Absolutely dominated. If you enjoyed this video, please share this with other friends or classmates or peers that you believe will value this. And that is all. Have an amazing rest of your day. Please be sure to like, subscribe. We'll see you on the next training. Much love. Keep crushing it. Bye.